Here's the thing about life-changing moments. They never look important when they're happening. "Lady, please." Bridget Monroe heard the voice but kept walking. Gate 47B. Singapore. That's where her attention was. That's where it had been for 18 months. A small hand grabbed her coat. "My dad, he's not walking. He's on the floor. Nobody will help." She turned, irritated, ready to explain she was busy, she had a flight, she couldn't. And saw him. 7 years old. Tears streaming. Wearing his father's work jacket like a security blanket. And 20 feet behind him, his father, collapsed against a pillar, face drooping, lips blue, dying while Terminal C flowed around him like water around a stone. People filming. People staring. People stepping over his legs. Nobody helping. If you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let's get into it. Bridget checked her watch. 8:48 a.m. final boarding. Last call. Everything she'd built waiting on the other side of that gate. The boy's eyes, God, those eyes, looked exactly like her son Jacob's had looked 6 years ago when she'd been too busy to notice he couldn't breathe. She'd promised herself then, never again. But this wasn't her son. This was a stranger. This was someone else's emergency. Someone else's problem. Except the boy was still holding her coat. Still believing she might care. "What's your name?" she asked. "Israel." Bridget dropped her bag. "Let's go." She missed her flight. Lost her deal. Probably destroyed her quarter. Best decision she ever made. Because 3 days later, after the ambulance and the hospital and the investigation that would uncover years of systematic cruelty, Bridget Monroe would spend $200 million to buy the company that had nearly killed Emmanuel Foster. She'd give him back his health, his dignity, and his future. She'd prove that sometimes the most expensive things you can buy aren't measured in money. They're measured in the smile on a 7-year-old boy's face when his father wakes up. But none of that had happened yet. Right now, it was just a woman and a boy running toward a dying man while a plane to Singapore left without her. 3 days earlier. If you want to understand why Emmanuel Foster was dying on an airport floor, you have to go back further. Back to Monday morning. Southwest Philadelphia. A studio apartment where the radiator clanked but never quite heated, where sirens wailed through thin walls, where a father and son were slowly drowning in the kind of poverty that kills quietly. Monday, November 25th, 6:47 a.m. Emmanuel Foster's phone alarm pulled him from something that wasn't quite sleep. His body ached everywhere, the deep, bone-tired exhaustion of a man who just finished an 8-hour night shift cleaning Terminal C for $16.50 an hour. No benefits. No sick days. No safety net. Just work or starve. He needed 3 hours of sleep before taking Israel to school. 3 hours before the cycle started again. But Israel was already awake. "Morning, Daddy." Emmanuel turned his head. His 7-year-old son sat at their small table, dressed in his school uniform, backpack ready, eating generic cereal with watered-down milk because they were running low on groceries. The boy had gotten himself ready. Made his own breakfast. Never complained. Not when Emmanuel worked doubles. Not when dinner was ramen 3 nights straight. Not even when other kids wore new sneakers and Israel wore thrift store Velcros held together with duct tape. "Morning, buddy," Emmanuel managed, forcing himself to sit up. He stood to make coffee. His left leg buckled completely. Emmanuel caught himself on the kitchen counter, breath sharp with pain. The numbness had been getting worse for 3 weeks, spreading from his leg to his arm, heavy and unresponsive, like it belonged to someone else. "Daddy." Israel's voice, worried. Too mature for 7. "I'm okay, buddy. Just tired." He wasn't okay. Emmanuel's eyes fell on the bills spread across the counter. Rent, $850, due in 5 days. Electric, $143, overdue with a disconnect notice. Israel's school lunch account, $47 negative. The pharmacy bill for Israel's asthma inhaler, $89. His paycheck after taxes, $528. Even with weekend overtime, they were $300 short. And the numbness, the dizzy spells, the weakness, these needed doctors. Doctors needed money they didn't have. Urgent care, $200. Tests and scans, $2,000 or more. They were already drowning. Israel's gaze drifted to the photo on the wall. Emmanuel in a Princeton University sweatshirt, younger, hopeful, before everything fell apart. Daddy, did you really go to college there? A long time ago, buddy. Before you were born. Emmanuel didn't mention the full academic scholarship. The pre-law program. The 3.8 GPA. The dreams of becoming a civil rights attorney. He didn't mention dropping out junior year when Rebecca died in childbirth, or the life he could have had. That version of Emmanuel Foster had died the same day Rebecca did. Daddy, you're walking funny. Like your legs asleep. Emmanuel forced a smile. Just sore from work. I'm fine. But Israel noticed everything. Had since he was 3, since his mother died and it became just the two of them. The boy who'd learned to read emotions because survival depended on knowing when Daddy was really struggling. Emmanuel looked at his son. 7 years old, raising himself while Emmanuel worked himself to death. No after-school program, $180 a month they didn't have. No babysitter. Israel went to school, came home to an empty apartment, did homework alone, made himself dinner from whatever Emmanuel left. This was their life. This was all Emmanuel could give him. That afternoon, Emmanuel woke groggy at 11:30, left side still numb. He took Israel to the park and watched his son play alone. Other kids avoided him because his clothes were too shabby, he was too quiet. Emmanuel's vision blurred. He gripped the park bench to stay upright. Daddy, you okay? Fine, buddy. Let's go home. By 10:30 p.m., Emmanuel was preparing for another shift. He kissed Israel's forehead. The boy pretended to sleep, but Emmanuel knew he was awake, worried. Love you, Daddy. Be careful. Love you too, Israel. Always. Emmanuel walked to the bus stop, left leg dragging slightly. Just need to make it through the week, he told himself. Just need to pay rent. Then things will get better. They wouldn't. He boarded the night bus to the airport, hand gripping the rail for balance, vision swimming. Behind him, in their dark apartment, Israel lay awake listening for the sound of his father coming home safe. Tuesday morning, 6:15 a.m. Terminal C restroom near Gate 35. Emmanuel was cleaning when the world tilted sideways. The dizziness hit without warning, vision tunneling to a pinpoint, floor rushing up to meet him. His mop clattered to the tile. He collapsed against the wall and slid down, back pressed against cold porcelain, legs splayed out in front of him. He couldn't feel his left side at all now. 20 minutes passed. The custodial closet was 10 feet away. He should call for help. Should admit he was dying. But calling for help meant admitting weakness. Weakness meant going home. Going home meant losing hours. Losing hours meant not making rent. So he sat on the dirty floor and tried to remember how to breathe. Daddy! Emmanuel's head snapped up. Israel stood in the restroom doorway. Emmanuel had brought him to work again when childcare fell through, let him sleep in the break room. Terror sharpened the boy's small voice. Emmanuel forced himself to stand, legs shaking like a newborn foal's. I'm fine, Israel. Just slipped. The boy's face said he didn't believe it. You didn't slip. You fell. Like when people get sick. Emmanuel gripped the sink, knuckles white. I'm not sick. Just tired. But his words came out slurred, thick. Israel noticed. He noticed everything. We should go to the hospital. Emmanuel's heart broke clean in half. Can't afford it, buddy. We'll be okay. Israel's eyes, 7 years old but understanding poverty's brutal mathematics, understanding that we can't afford it, meant we suffer in silence. But Daddy, what if? We'll be okay, Emmanuel repeated. Neither of them believed it. An hour later, Emmanuel's supervisor Mike Torres found him leaning heavily on his mop, face gray with exhaustion. Foster, you look like hell. You drunk? No, sir. Just, my leg's bothering me. Mike studied him. Emmanuel was his best worker, never late, never complained, picked up every shift nobody wanted, worked holidays. But liability was liability. You can't work like this. Finish your shift, then take tomorrow off. I can't afford. That's not a suggestion. Take a day. Get yourself right. That afternoon, Emmanuel submitted a formal medical leave request through Clearsky Services' online portal, requesting 2 days medical leave for doctor's appointment. Experiencing numbness in left leg and arm. Dizziness. Unable to perform duties safely. At 4:37 p.m., the response arrived, request denied. Insufficient staffing coverage. No paid sick leave per contractor agreement. Schedule doctor appointment outside work hours. Return to work Wednesday night or face disciplinary action. Emmanuel stared at the email. Wanted to scream. Wanted to cry. Instead, he made Israel dinner, ramen with a fried egg, protein at least, helped with homework, read him a library book before bed, and pretended everything was fine. Wednesday night, Emmanuel showed up for his shift. Left side almost completely numb now. Right side starting to feel heavy. Words thick in his mouth. Vision blurring at the edges. He cleaned slowly, carefully, gripping walls for balance. Co-workers noticed but said nothing. Everyone was too afraid of losing their own jobs to help. At 3:22 a.m., during his 15-minute break, Emmanuel tried to drink coffee. The cup slipped from his left hand and shattered on the break room floor. He stared at his hand. Couldn't feel the cup. Couldn't tell he was dropping it. Terror flooded through him. This wasn't just fatigue. This was something seriously wrong. At 8 a.m., he submitted another request, emergency medical leave request. Symptoms worsening. Dizziness, numbness, loss of motor control. Cannot perform duties safely. Request 3 days to see doctor. The response came at 11:24 a.m., not from Mike but from HR, request denied. No sick leave benefits for contractor employees. Unpaid absence beyond one shift will result in immediate termination. Report to work or position will be forfeited. Emmanuel read it 3 times. The message was clear: work or starve. Your health doesn't matter. You're replaceable. You're invisible. That afternoon, Israel watched him struggle to walk across their tiny apartment. Daddy, why won't they let you see a doctor? Emmanuel couldn't explain the cruelty of systems designed to chew up poor people. Couldn't explain that his life was worth less than staffing schedules. It's complicated, buddy. But you're really sick. I'll be okay. The lie tasted like ash. Wednesday night into Thursday morning, Emmanuel barely made it through his shift. He leaned against walls, sat on bathroom stall floors when no one was looking. His right side of his face felt strange, numb, drooping. In the restroom mirror, his face looked slightly crooked. Terrifying. He splashed cold water on his face, tried to wake up. One more night, he told himself. Just make it to Friday. Then the weekend. Then he could rest. Thursday morning, 7 a.m., Emmanuel walked home from the bus stop, stopping every few yards to lean against buildings. Across the city, in her King of Prussia mansion, Bridget Monroe woke to French press coffee and prepared for her Friday flight to Singapore. 2 lives on collision course. Neither knowing it yet. Thursday evening, 9:45 p.m. Emmanuel could barely stand. His right side was almost completely numb now. Face drooping noticeably. Words slurring so badly even he could hear it. He fumbled with his work uniform, trying to button it with fingers that wouldn't cooperate. Daddy, please don't go. Israel's voice cracked. Please stay home. You're really sick. Emmanuel knelt, nearly fell, and held his son's face between his trembling hands. I have to, buddy. We need the money. I'll be okay. I promise. A promise he couldn't keep. Israel's eyes filled with tears. What if something happens? Nothing will happen. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Emmanuel kissed his forehead, left him with Mrs. Rodriguez from 2B who watched him for free, and walked to the bus stop. Each step was agony. By 11 p.m., Emmanuel moved through Terminal C like a ghost. Everything hurt. Everything was numb. A paradox of pain and absence. He cleaned slowly, meticulously, trying not to draw attention, trying not to collapse. Co-workers whispered, "Foster looks rough," but nobody helped. Nobody asked. Invisible man doing invisible work. At 3:17 a.m., James, another custodian, found Emmanuel sitting on the supply closet floor. "Man, you look terrible. You should go home." "Can't. They'd rather you die than miss a shift." Emmanuel laughed bitterly. "Probably." James shook his head. "This job's killing all of us slowly. You just speed-running it." He walked away. Emmanuel sat another 5 minutes, then forced himself up. Back to work. Because what choice was there? At 6:30 a.m., Emmanuel clocked out. He needed to get home, sleep 3 hours before taking Israel to school. But Mike Torres called him into the office. "Foster, sit down." Emmanuel sat, dizzy, gripping the chair arms. "You look like death. Multiple people reported you nearly collapsing last night." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're a liability. I should send you home right now." "Please, Mike. I need this shift. I need the hours." Mike's face softened slightly. He wasn't a bad man, just caught in the same brutal system. "One more shift. Friday morning. Then you're taking the weekend off whether you like it or not. And Monday, you better come back healthy or I'm putting you on leave." Emmanuel nodded, grateful for even this crumb of mercy. Friday, 8 a.m. Emmanuel started his Friday morning shift, a double, Thursday night bleeding into Friday morning. He'd been awake for 26 hours. Body screaming. Vision tunneling. He made it 1 hour. Cleaned 2 restrooms. Then at 8:31 a.m., near gate 47, his right leg stopped working. Not dramatic. Not sudden. Just stopped. Emmanuel slid down against a pillar, back against cold concrete. Right side of his body completely numb. Face drooping severely. Drooling. He couldn't speak clearly. Couldn't move. Terminal C's morning rush swirled around him. Hundreds of people. Nobody stopped. A woman in yoga pants pulled out her phone, filmed him, posted to TikTok. Homeless guy having a breakdown at the airport grimacing face. A businessman in an expensive suit stepped over Emmanuel's legs, annoyed.
"Monroe, I'll never paint during work hours again. I'll erase this right now. I'll stay late tonight and tomorrow to make up the time. Just please," her voice broke. "Please don't fire me. Maya needs this insurance. She needs me to keep this job." The silence that followed was deafening. Elizabeth stood rigid, waiting for judgment, her hands trembling at her sides. The Bluetooth speaker on her cleaning cart had stopped playing music, the Vivaldi piece finished. The only sound was the distant hum of the building's ventilation system and the barely audible rhythm of the city beyond the glass walls. Danny looked at the mural one more time. At the little girl looking up at the city with wonder. At the buildings rising like dreams. At the possibility captured in expo marker strokes by a woman who cleaned floors to keep her daughter alive. "Maya," he said quietly. "The girl in the painting. That's your daughter." It wasn't a question, but Elizabeth nodded anyway. "That's how I imagine her future," she whispered. Looking up at possibility instead of limitations. Seeing a world full of opportunity instead of obstacles. Her voice dropped even lower. "Everything I'm not showing her right now." Danny's expression remained unreadable, his dark eyes moving from the mural to Elizabeth and back again. The tension in the conference room stretched taut as a wire. Elizabeth held her breath, waiting for the sentence that would determine whether her daughter kept her insulin or whether they'd be thrown back into the nightmare of inadequate insurance and impossible choices. Finally, Danny spoke. "How long have you worked here, Elizabeth?" 2 years, Elizabeth answered, her voice barely steady. 2 years, 3 months. Night shift, 5 days a week. 11 to 7. I clean during Maya's sleep hours. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, she stays at the apartment. Just in case. Danny nodded slowly, processing. "And you paint during your breaks? Is this a regular thing?" "Sometimes." Elizabeth's eyes dropped to her stained hands. "Just on whiteboards? Things I can erase before anyone sees. Small sketches mostly. A flower. A face. Nothing like this." She gestured at the mural with something between pride and shame. "Tonight I needed to create something bigger. Something that felt real." "Why?" Danny asked, genuine curiosity coloring his tone. Elizabeth was quiet for a long moment, as if weighing whether honesty would cost her more than lies. Finally she spoke, her voice soft and raw. "It helps me remember who I used to be, I guess. Who I wanted to become." She looked at the mural, at the city she'd created. When you spend every night cleaning other people's offices, when you're just invisible, sometimes you forget you used to be someone who made things. Someone who had dreams that didn't revolve around insurance copays and insulin refills. The vulnerability in her words landed like a physical weight. Danny found his gaze drawn back to the small figure in the foreground, that little girl with her face turned skyward. "This girl," he said, pointing. "Tell me about her." Elizabeth's entire demeanor transformed. The fear and defensiveness melted away, replaced by something fierce and tender. "That's Maya. How I imagine her future. Looking up at possibility instead of limitations." Her voice softened with unmistakable maternal love. "I want her to see the world as a place full of opportunity, not obstacles. I want her to believe she can be anything. Even though she has diabetes. Even though we live in a one-bedroom apartment in Queens. Even though her mother cleans floors for a living." Elizabeth's eyes remained fixed on the painted figure. "Especially because of all that. She needs to know that circumstances don't define destiny." Something shifted in Danny's chest. A recognition, uncomfortable and profound. He'd built his entire fortune on a single principle: identifying undervalued assets. Companies the market overlooked. Properties other investors dismissed. Opportunities hidden in plain sight. He'd made millions, tens of millions, by seeing potential where others saw nothing. But standing here looking at Elizabeth Chen and her extraordinary mural, he realized with sudden, startling clarity that he'd never applied that vision to people. Not like this. Not to the janitor who passed him in the hallway. Not to the security guard or the receptionist or any of the dozens of employees who kept his building running while remaining invisible to him. How many Elizabeth Chens worked in this building? How many people with talent and dreams and stories he'd never bothered to see? "You said you went to Parsons," Danny said, his tone shifting to something more businesslike, as if examining a potential investment. "Full scholarship. Senior year. What happened?" "I got pregnant. The father left. I tried to balance school and motherhood, but..." Elizabeth's voice caught. "I couldn't afford both tuition and a baby, even with the scholarship. There were living expenses, medical costs, childcare. I had to choose. So I dropped out 3 months before graduation." 3 months, Danny repeated, the waste of it striking him like a blow. 3 months, Elizabeth confirmed, the words heavy with old grief. "I was so close. My thesis was approved. I had a plan for my final exhibition. And then it was just gone. All of it." Danny moved closer to the mural, examining it with the same intense scrutiny he'd apply to a financial report or market analysis. The layering technique Elizabeth had used to create depth. The way she'd manipulated the transparency of the markers to suggest light and shadow. The composition that drew the eye from the small figure upward through the buildings to the sky. The emotional resonance of the piece. Hope and wonder and possibility captured in something as temporary as whiteboard art. It was extraordinary. Not just good. Not just competent. Extraordinary. He thought about the galleries in Chelsea and Soho, the art he'd purchased for his penthouse apartment because his interior designer said it showed good taste. Pieces that cost tens of thousands of dollars. None of them had moved him the way this makeshift mural did. "This is professional level work," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. "Gallery quality. Maybe better." The weight of wasted potential settled between them like something tangible. Here was a woman with exceptional talent, relegated to cleaning floors because life had demanded she choose between her dreams and her daughter's survival. And she'd chosen her daughter without hesitation, without bitterness, and somehow still found moments to create beauty in the spaces between. Danny turned to look at Elizabeth, really look at her, perhaps for the first time. "You're wasting your life here," he said. Her face went pale. "Mr. Monroe, please." "That's not a criticism," he interrupted gently. "It's an observation." "What would you do?" Danny asked slowly, his voice careful and measured, "if you could finish your degree?" Elizabeth's laugh was hollow, empty of hope. "That's a fantasy, Mr. Monroe. Humor me."
And this time, someone did. 9:15 a.m. Emmanuel was rushed directly to CT scan, then to the catheterization lab. Bridget and Israel were directed to the stroke family waiting room. Beige walls. Uncomfortable chairs. Clock ticking too loudly. The smell of hospital coffee and antiseptic hung in the air. Israel still wore his father's oversized security jacket, blood on the sleeve. Bridget still wore her dirt and blood-stained $2,500 suit. They sat in silence. Israel stared at the floor, small body rigid with shock. He hadn't cried since the ambulance. Hadn't spoken. Just sat with his hands folded in his lap, 7 years old, trying to be brave. Bridget watched him, this child processing trauma with composure no child should have. She recognized it, the composure of a child who'd learned crying doesn't help. Israel, have you eaten today? He shook his head. Let's get you something. I'm not hungry. You need to eat anyway. Your dad would want you to. In the cafeteria, fluorescent lights, smell of industrial food, Bridget bought scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, fruit cup, chocolate milk. Israel stared at the food, managed 3 bites of toast. I can't eat. My stomach hurts. Bridget understood. Okay. But drink the juice at least. He sipped obediently. Bridget's phone buzzed constantly in her purse. She ignored every call. Back in the waiting room at 10:15, Israel broke the silence. Why are you helping us? Bridget considered lying, decided on truth. 6 years ago, my son got very sick. I was too busy working to notice. By the time I stopped, he almost died. Is he okay now? He's fine. Healthy and strong. But I learned something that day. Nothing is more important than being there when someone needs help. Israel processed this. So you helped Daddy because of your son? I helped your dad because he needed help. And because you asked me to. Pause. What if I hadn't grabbed your coat? What if you'd gotten on your plane? Bridget's throat tightened. Then I would have made the biggest mistake of my life. Over the next hour, Israel talked. Small details spilling out like water through a cracked dam. Daddy works nights, $16.50 an hour. No insurance, no sick days. Studio apartment, always behind on rent. Israel makes his own breakfast, gets himself to school, comes home to an empty apartment, does homework alone. Sometimes Daddy falls asleep while reading bedtime stories. But he always tries. Even when he's really tired, he always reads to me. Israel's voice cracked. He was just so tired all the time. Your mom? Bridget asked gently. Israel's face went still. She died when I was born. Her name was Rebecca. She was in college with Daddy. She wanted to be a doctor. They were in college together? Princeton. Daddy was going to be a lawyer. But he dropped out when Mommy died. He had to take care of me. Bridget's heart stopped. Your dad went to Princeton? The full tragedy crystallized. Brilliant young man, full scholarship, entire future, destroyed by circumstance, by poverty. Emmanuel Foster could have been anything. Instead, he cleaned toilets for $16.50 an hour because he had no choice. At 10:45, Bridget stepped into the hallway and called Marcus Webb, her attorney. Marcus, I need employment records immediately. Emmanuel Foster, custodial services at Philadelphia International. Bridget, you missed Singapore. $12 million. I'm aware. Can we focus? What do you need? Everything. Hiring documents, pay stubs, medical leave requests, incident reports. I want to know who employs him and what they knew. I'll have something by afternoon. Make it sooner. She called home. Jacob answered. Mom, you never made your flight. I'm at the hospital. I helped someone this morning. She explained briefly. So you missed your flight to save someone's life? Jacob's voice filled with something like pride. That's really cool, Mom. Bridget's eyes burned. Thanks, baby. The Singapore deal. It's just money, Jacob. Sometimes people are more important. After hanging up, she stood in the corridor and cried for 30 seconds. Then pulled herself together. At 11:43 a.m., Dr. Sarah Chen emerged in surgical scrubs. Israel, honey, the doctor's here. They stood. Israel grabbed Bridget's hand. Dr. Chen knelt to Israel's level. Are you Emmanuel's son? Yes, ma'am. Is my daddy okay? Your daddy is very sick, but he's alive. We removed a blood clot from his brain. Is he going to die? Not if we can help it. Dr. Chen stood, addressed Bridget. Massive ischemic stroke. Right middle cerebral artery. Mechanical thrombectomy. He's stable but unconscious. Next 48 to 72 hours are critical. Permanent damage? Likely some. He'll need extensive rehabilitation. Months of work. But he'll live. If you'd gotten him here 30 minutes later, he'd be dead or permanently paralyzed. You saved his life, Bridget. Israel tugged Dr. Chen's coat. Can I see him? He's unconscious. He won't know you're there. I want him to know I didn't leave. He never leaves me alone when I'm scared. Dr. Chen's eyes glistened. Okay. Let's go see your dad. In the ICU, Emmanuel lay unconscious, ventilator breathing for him. Monitors beeping. 4 lines running clear fluids. He looked so small. Israel climbed into the chair, took his father's left hand. Hi, Daddy. It's me. I'm here. The doctor says you're going to be okay. No response. Just the mechanical hiss of the ventilator. I'm not leaving. I promise. Bridget stood by the window. Her phone buzzed. Email from Marcus. Subject, Emmanuel Foster Employment Records. Urgent. She read. Her hands started shaking with rage. Emmanuel Foster. Hired by Clearsky Services. $16.50 per hour after 3 years. Classified as independent contractor to avoid benefits. No insurance. No sick days. Annual income, $34,320. 3 medical leave requests. All denied. October 28th. Denied. Scheduled doctor appointment outside work hours. November 4th. Denied. Unpaid absence will result in termination. November 18th. Denied. Report to Friday shift or employment terminated. Marcus's notes showed the pattern. 127 medical leave requests over 5 years. 119 denied. Contract workers, 78% people of color. Regular employees, 89% white. Automatic sick leave. Incident reports blamed Emmanuel. Possible substance abuse. Possible intoxication. Nobody asked if he was sick. They just assumed, drunk, drugs, problem employee. CEO Richard Marsden, $23.6 million compensation. Emmanuel, $34,320 a year. Marsden made in 3 days what Emmanuel made in a year. Bridget pulled out her phone. Called Marcus. I want to buy Clearsky Services. Silence. Bridget, what? You heard me. I want to acquire the company. All of it. That's insane. Because they killed this man. With policy. With cruelty disguised as business practice. And I'm going to make sure it never happens again. That's going to cost. I don't care what it costs. Make it happen. Bridget stood at the window, having just decided to spend hundreds of millions to help a man she met 3 hours ago. Below, Philadelphia spread out under gray November sky. In the reflection, she saw herself, suit ruined, makeup smeared, looking more alive than she had in years. Behind her, Israel whispered to his unconscious father, I love you, Daddy. Please wake up. Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Bridget had been at the hospital for 24 hours straight. She'd gone home only to shower, change clothes, and check on Jacob. Returned at 6 a.m. with fresh coffee and breakfast. Israel had slept in the ICU chair all night despite nurses trying to move him. I promised Daddy I wouldn't leave. I'm not breaking my promise. Emmanuel was still unconscious but stable. The ventilator had been removed overnight. He was breathing on his own now. Right side still paralyzed. But alive. Bridget helped Israel wash up in the hospital bathroom. They ate breakfast in the cafeteria. Israel managed half a bagel. Back in the ICU, Israel read aloud from a library book Bridget had brought. The doctor said you might be able to hear me, Daddy. So I'm reading The Giver. Remember? You started reading it to me last month. No response from Emmanuel. But his heart rate steadied when Israel read. Bridget noticed. Made a mental note. He can hear his son. At 9:15 a.m., Bridget stepped into the hallway to take Marcus's call. I have news. Richard Marsden, Clearsky's CEO, is willing to meet. Today. He knows you're looking into the company. How does he know? I made inquiries. People talk. He's nervous. Good. He should be. Bridget, what exactly are you planning? Justice. Set up the meeting. Here at the hospital. Conference room. 11 a.m. He'll want his lawyers. He can bring whoever he wants. So will I. By 10:30, Bridget had arranged everything. Hospital conference room. Her legal team, Marcus Webb, Jennifer Santos for corporate litigation, David Kim for employment law. Also Mike Torres, Emmanuel supervisor, looking like a man about to confess his sins. At 10:55, Richard Marsden arrived. 50s, expensive suit, confident smile that didn't reach his eyes. Two attorneys flanked him in matching gray suits. Bridget sat at the head of the table, her team beside her. Empty chairs waited across from them. Marsden sat, smile fixed. Ms. Monroe, I understand you've taken an interest in one of our employees. Former employee. Emmanuel Foster is not returning to your company. Former. He's on medical leave. He nearly died because you denied him medical care. That's not medical leave. That's attempted manslaughter. The smile vanished. That's a serious accusation. Backed by serious evidence. Jennifer Santos slid folders across the table. 3 documented medical leave requests over 3 weeks. All denied. Multiple co-worker reports of Mr. Foster's deteriorating condition. All ignored. Your supervisor noted possible substance abuse rather than medical emergency. Your HR department threatened termination if he sought medical care. Mike Torres shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know he was having a stroke. You didn't ask. You assumed. And your assumption almost killed him. David Kim opened his laptop, projecting data onto the screen. Charts appeared, color-coded by race and employee classification. 5 years of medical leave requests at Clearsky Services. 127 requests from contract workers. 119 denied. 94% denial rate. Of the 8 approved, all were white employees with supervisor relationships. Meanwhile, your corporate employees, automatic sick leave, 0 denials. Another slide. Contract workers, 78% people of color. Corporate employees, 89% white. This isn't negligence, Mr. Marsden. This is systematic discrimination. Marsden leaned back. Contract workers aren't employees. They're independent contractors. Different rules apply. They work full-time hours. Exclusively for you. They wear your uniforms. Follow your schedules. They're employees in everything but name, and you classify them as contractors to avoid providing benefits. That's a legal business structure. It's exploitation disguised as policy. Bridget slid her own document across the table. Your compensation last year, $23.6 million. Emmanuel Foster's compensation, $34,320. You made in 3 days what he made in a year. And when he asked for 3 days to see a doctor, you threatened to fire him. Marsden's jaw tightened. My compensation is set by the board. Based on company performance built on the backs of workers you're killing through neglect. Jennifer clicked her laptop. Audio filled the room, Marsden's voice from a company meeting, we need to keep labor costs down. Benefits are killing our margins. Keep the contractors classified correctly. No exceptions. Another voice, what about workers requesting medical leave? Marsden's response, deny unless legally required. Make them prove it's an emergency. Most won't fight it. Silence. Marsden's face went white. That recording is illegal. It's from a company meeting you recorded for training purposes. Your own recording. Perfectly legal. Mike Torres suddenly spoke, voice shaking. I didn't want to deny his requests. I liked Emmanuel. He was my best worker. Marsden glared. Mike, don't. You told us to deny everything. Said if we approved leave for contract workers, we'd set a precedent. You said they were replaceable. Mike, you're terminated. I already quit. This morning. I can't work for you anymore. Mike looked at Bridget. Emmanuel almost died because I followed policy. I have to live with that. Bridget leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Marsden. You're going to pay for Emmanuel Foster's complete medical care. Everything. You're going to provide full disability compensation. Back pay for every denied leave request. And you're going to change your contractor classification system. Marsden laughed. And if I refuse, then I go public. Jennifer's voice was steel. Emmanuel's story is ready to release. Full documentation. Your denials. The recordings. Philadelphia Inquirer, CNN, New York Times. CEO worth $24 million denied dying worker medical care. You'll lose your airport contracts. Your reputation. And will file federal complaints. Title VII discrimination, OSHA violations, contractor misclassification. We'll bury you in litigation for years. Bridget pulled out a final document. Or you can make this easy. I'm prepared to acquire Clearsky Services. Today. Full buyout. Marsden stared. You want to buy my company? I want to own it. So I can fix every broken policy that nearly killed Emmanuel Foster. Marsden's attorneys whispered urgently. Numbers flew. Company valuation. $180 million. $200 million, Bridget said. Final offer. You walk away rich and I don't destroy your reputation. Or I go public, your company collapses, and you get nothing. Long silence. Marsden looked at the evidence, the recordings, the data. He was trapped. Fine. $200 million. Marcus had documents ready. Sign here. And here. Marsden signed, hand shaking with rage. You're insane. You just spent $200 million on a janitor. Bridget stood. I spent $200 million on my conscience. Apparently yours is worthless. After Marsden left, Mike Torres remained. Ms. Monroe, I'm sorry. I should have done more. You followed the system. The system was broken. Now we fix it. Bridget paused. You're hired. Worker Advocacy Director. First job, review every denied medical leave request for the past 5 years. Find everyone we failed. Make it right. Mike's eyes watered. Thank you. Alone with her team, Jennifer spoke. You just spent $200 million to help one family. No. I spent $200 million to fix a system that's killing people. Marcus looked at her. Was it worth it? Bridget thought about Emmanuel unconscious upstairs. About Israel reading to his father. About her promise 6 years ago. Never again. Yes. Every penny. She walked back to ICU carrying the signed papers. She now owned a company she didn't need, spent $200 million she didn't have to spend, probably destroyed her career. But upstairs, a 7-year-old boy was reading to his father. And that father was alive because she'd stopped. She opened the ICU door. Israel looked up. Miss Bridget, his hand moved. Just a little. But it moved. Bridget smiled. Worth it. Absolutely worth it. Monday, 6:23 a.m. 72 hours after the collapse. Bridget arrived early carrying coffee and breakfast. Israel slept in the chair beside Emmanuel's bed, head resting on the rail. Emmanuel was still unconscious but breathing steadily on his own. The monitors showed improvement. Heart rate strong, blood pressure stabilizing. Dr. Chen had said yesterday, he's fighting. Keep talking to him. Bridget settled into the other chair and watched them, father and son, both sleeping, both exhausted. She pulled out her laptop. New email, board meeting called, emergency session, your presence required. She ignored it. At 7:15, Israel stirred, lifted his head, immediately checked his father. Still sleeping, Daddy. But I'm here. He noticed Bridget. You came back. I told you I would. People don't always do what they say. The weight of that statement from a 7-year-old. Bridget handed him hot chocolate. I keep my promises, Israel. Always. They ate breakfast together in the room. The hospital had finally allowed it. Israel chattered about random things. School, books, things he wanted to tell his father when he woke up. When Daddy wakes up, I'm going to tell him about the nice doctors. And about you. And about how brave I was in the ambulance. You were very brave. I was really scared. Brave doesn't mean not scared. Brave means being scared and doing it anyway. Israel thought about this. Were you scared? When you missed your plane? Terrified. But you did it anyway. Because it was the right thing to do. At 8:18 a.m., Israel was reading aloud from the Giver. He suddenly stopped. Miss Bridget, look. Emmanuel's left hand, fingers twitching. Small movement but definitely there. Bridget hit the call button. Nurse, we need Dr. Chen. He's responding. The nurse rushed in, checked monitors. I'll page Dr. Chen immediately. Dr. Chen arrived at 8:24, examined Emmanuel thoroughly. She shined light in his eyes, pupils equal and reactive now. Checked reflexes, left side responding, right side weak but improved. Emmanuel, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand. Nothing. Emmanuel, your son Israel is here. Squeeze my hand if you can hear me. Pause. Then, Emmanuel's left hand squeezed weakly. Israel gasped. Daddy. Dr. Chen smiled. He's in there. Coming back to us. The next hour passed slowly. More small movements, facial muscles twitching, eyes moving beneath closed lids. Israel held his father's hand, talking constantly. Daddy, the doctor says you're getting better. You're going to wake up soon. And when you do, everything's going to be different. Miss Bridget helped us. She helped us so much. Bridget's throat tightened. She stepped into the hallway and called Jacob. Mom, how's he doing? Better. Starting to wake up. That's amazing. When are you coming home? Soon, baby. Soon. Mom. I'm really proud of you. Bridget cried in the hospital hallway for the second time in 3 days. At 9:47 a.m., while Israel read aloud, Emmanuel's eyes fluttered. Opened slowly, unfocused. Confusion crossed his face. Israel saw first. Daddy. Daddy, you're awake. Emmanuel's eyes found his son. He tried to speak, voice hoarse, words slurred but comprehensible. Israel. You okay? I'm okay, Daddy. You're in the hospital. You had a stroke. But you're going to be okay. Emmanuel tried to sit up, couldn't. Panic flooded his face. He tried to move his right arm, nothing. Right leg, barely responded. What happened to me? Dr. Chen entered. Emmanuel, welcome back. You had a stroke. 3 days ago. You collapsed at work. Emmanuel's eyes went wild. 3 days. Where? Israel, where? I'm right here, Daddy. I've been here the whole time. Emmanuel's left hand found Israel's face, touching him as if making sure he was real. How? Hospital? We can't afford. Dr. Chen spoke gently. Everything's taken care of. Let's focus on your recovery. But Emmanuel was panicking. No. No, you don't understand. We don't have insurance. The bills. I need to leave. I need to get back to work. He tried to pull out his four. Israel grabbed his hand. Daddy, stop. You almost died. Bridget moved to the bedside. Emmanuel, I'm Bridget Monroe. Your son asked me to help 3 days ago. I got you to the hospital. Emmanuel stared at her, expensive clothes, obvious wealth. You. Why would you? Because you needed help. And because your son was very brave. The bills, I can't pay, we don't have money. You're not paying. Everything's covered. I don't understand. Who are you? Someone who was in the right place at the right time. Emmanuel looked at his right side, trying to move it. I can't. My arm. My leg. Dr. Chen explained. You had a severe stroke. Right side weakness is common. With rehabilitation, you'll regain function. I can't afford therapy. I need to work. We need money. Israel needs. His voice broke. face crumpled with reality. He was paralyzed. He couldn't work. They had no money. Israel would end up in foster care. Everything he'd fought for, gone. Israel climbed carefully onto the bed beside his father. "Daddy, it's okay. Miss Bridget is helping us. She bought your company." Emmanuel's confusion deepened. "What? She's really rich and she was going to Singapore, but I asked her to help and she did, and she missed her plane and now she's helping us." Emmanuel looked at Bridget. "You missed your flight? It was just a flight. For me. You don't know me. I know enough." Emmanuel's mind struggled to process through post-stroke fog. "What day is it?" "Monday. November 28th. I missed 3 days of work. They'll fire me. I need to call Mike." "You're not going back there." "I have to. We need money. Israel needs." Bridget spoke gently. "Emmanuel, you're not going back to Clearsky Services. You're not cleaning toilets anymore. We need to talk, but first you need to rest." "I can't rest. I need to figure out." Exhaustion overwhelmed him mid-sentence. Eyes closing involuntarily. "Israel. I'm here, Daddy. I'm not leaving." Emmanuel fell back into sleep, hand still holding his son's. In the hallway, Dr. Chen spoke with Bridget and Israel. "He's going to have a long recovery. Months of rehabilitation. Right-sided weakness may never fully resolve. Manual labor. Custodial work. No. He'll need a different career." Israel tugged Bridget's hand. "What does that mean?" "It means your dad is going to have to do different work." "Can he do that?" Bridget thought about Emmanuel's Princeton scholarship, his buried intelligence. "Yes. He absolutely can." She stepped away and called Marcus. "The acquisition went through this morning. You officially own Clearsky Services." "Good. I want to create a new position. Hospital Administration. Patient Advocacy. For Emmanuel Foster. $72,000 to start. Full benefits. Everything he should have had all along. You're building a job around him." "I'm building a job that needs doing. He's just the person to do it." 3 months later. February 26th, 8:47 a.m. Emmanuel Foster stood outside his new office door on the 4th floor of Penn Presbyterian Hospital's administrative wing. He still used a cane, right leg stronger but not perfect. Right arm functional but weaker than left. Speech clear now after months of therapy. He wore a suit. The one Bridget had bought him, tailored to fit perfectly. Israel stood beside him in his school uniform, backpack on. "You ready, Daddy?" Emmanuel took a breath. "I think so. You're going to be great." 7-year-old encouraging his 34-year-old father. Role reversal that shouldn't exist but does. The door plaque read, Emmanuel Foster, Patient Advocacy Coordinator. They entered together. The office overlooked Philadelphia skyline, the same view as the ICU where Emmanuel had woken up. Desk, computer, filing cabinets, coffee maker. A photo frame on the desk, Emmanuel and Israel from 3 weeks ago, both smiling. Real smiles, not survival smiles. "This is really yours, Daddy. This is really mine." Emmanuel sat in the chair, ran his hand over the desk. 6 months ago he was cleaning toilets. Now he had an office. A career. A future. At 9 o'clock, Israel prepared to leave. The hospital shuttle would take him to school, bring him back to the after-school program. "I'll see you at 3:30, Daddy. Be good. Learn something." "I always learn something." Israel hugged him. "I'm proud of you." Emmanuel's throat closed. "I'm proud of you too, buddy." After Israel left, Emmanuel sat alone in his office, still unable to believe it was real. A knock. Mike Torres entered, now Worker Advocacy Director, hired by Bridget after the Clearsky confrontation. "Morning, Emmanuel. Ready for your first case?" "As ready as I'll ever be." Mike handed him a file. Maria Santos, 42, diagnosed with lupus. Hospital housekeeper. Can't afford medication. Avoiding treatment because she's terrified of bills. Emmanuel opened the file and saw himself in every line. The fear. The impossible choices. The slow dying. What do? We help her. That's what you're here for. At 10 o'clock, Emmanuel met Maria Santos in a consultation room. She was small, tired, scared. Reminded him of his mother before she died. Ms. Santos, I'm Emmanuel Foster. I'm here to help you figure out your medical care. I can't afford treatment. I don't have insurance. I'm just going to manage on my own. Emmanuel sat across from her. 3 months ago, I was cleaning this hospital. I was having a stroke and I couldn't afford to see a doctor. I know exactly how you feel. Maria looked up, surprised. You were a custodian for 3 years. Worked night shifts. Got sicker and sicker. Couldn't afford to stop working. What happened? I almost died. Someone helped me. Now I'm here to help you. Emmanuel explained the patient financial advocacy initiative that Bridget had created, funded by Monroe Pharmaceuticals and Clearsky Services. Insurance navigation, payment plans, charity care applications, medication assistance. Goal: no one dies because they're poor. Maria cried. This is real. You can really help me. We can really help you. Let's start. They spent an hour going through her options. By the end, Maria had an appointment scheduled, medication assistance approved, a financial plan in place. She left crying grateful tears. Emmanuel sat alone after she went and realized, this is what he was supposed to do all along. Not clean toilets. Help people. Save people the way someone saved him. At 12:30, in the hospital cafeteria, Bridget joined Emmanuel for lunch, their weekly routine. How was your first morning? Overwhelming. Amazing. I helped someone. That's the point. They ate in comfortable silence. Then Emmanuel spoke. I never properly thanked you. You don't need to. No, I do. You gave up $12 million for me. You spent $200 million to buy my company. You gave me my life back. Bridget set down her fork. Emmanuel, I didn't give you your life. You already had it. You were brilliant, hard-working, devoted to your son. The system tried to kill you for being poor. I just stopped them. Still. Thank you. Bridget leaned forward. You know what happened after I bought Clearsky? 347 contract workers now have health insurance. Paid sick leave. Worker protections. Because of you. Your story made it impossible to ignore. Last month, Philadelphia passed new contractor protection laws. Other cities are following. You changed more than your life, Emmanuel. You changed the system. Emmanuel processed this. I was just trying to survive. Sometimes survival is revolution. Do you regret it? Emmanuel asked. The Singapore deal? Bridget thought about that morning 3 months ago. Gate 47B closing. Israel grabbing her coat. The choice she made. You know what that deal was? A pharmaceutical distribution contract. More money in my already full accounts. It would have made me richer. It wouldn't have made me better. She looked at Emmanuel. I regret nothing. Missing that flight was the best decision I ever made. $12 million. Is just money. You and Israel. You're irreplaceable. At 3:30, Israel bounded into Emmanuel's office after school, backpack flying, energy everywhere. Daddy, guess what I learned today? What, buddy? We learned about heroes. Mrs. Patterson said heroes are people who help others even when it's hard. I told her about you and Miss Bridget. Emmanuel pulled his son into a hug. You're my hero, Israel. You saved me. How? You were brave enough to ask for help. Not every kid could do that. Israel hugged back. We're a good team. The best team. At 5 o'clock, they left together, walking to the parking garage. Bridget had helped Emmanuel get a used car, taught him to drive with his weaker right side. They had a new apartment too, 2 bedrooms in a safe neighborhood. Israel chattered about school, friends, his science project. Emmanuel listened, heart full. 3 months ago, they were drowning. Now they were living. That evening, in their new apartment, 2 bedrooms, clean, safe, warm, they made dinner together. Chicken, vegetables, rice. Ate at their small table. Daddy, are we going to be okay? Emmanuel thought about his job, the insurance, the stability. Yeah, buddy. We're going to be okay. Promise. Promise. At bedtime, Emmanuel read to Israel, finishing The Giver, the book Israel had read to him in the ICU. Daddy, do you think we'll ever go to Disney World? Emmanuel thought about his salary, their savings plan. Next summer. I promise. We're going. Really. Really. We're going to do everything I promised you. All the things we couldn't afford before. We're going to live, Israel. Not just survive. Israel hugged him. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, buddy. More than anything. After Israel fell asleep, Emmanuel stood at their apartment window, looking out over Philadelphia. He pulled out his phone and texted Bridget, "Thank you. For everything. For seeing us when everyone else looked away." Her response came immediately, "You were always worth seeing, Emmanuel. The world just needed better eyes." At the same time, in her King of Prussia mansion, Bridget sat with Jacob watching a movie. Her phone buzzed with Emmanuel's text. She smiled. "The airport guy?" Jacob asked. "Yeah. I'm glad you helped him, Mom." "Me too, baby. Do you miss the Singapore money?" Bridget thought about Emmanuel's first day, Maria Santos getting help, Israel's smile. "Not even a little bit." 6 months later, Emmanuel presented at a hospital board meeting. Patient Financial Advocacy Program results. 247 patients helped. 0 medical bankruptcies. Lives saved. Immeasurable. The board applauded. Bridget watched from the back of the room, proud. Afterward, they walked through the hospital together, past the spot in Terminal C where it all began. "Do you ever think about that morning?" Emmanuel asked. "Every day." "Me too. I think about dying on that floor. Everyone walking past. Then your face appearing. Angel in a business suit." Bridget laughed. "Some angel. I almost kept walking. But you didn't." "No. I didn't." They reached the exit. Emmanuel heading to pick up Israel. Bridget heading to her next meeting. "Same time next week?" Emmanuel asked. "Wouldn't miss it." Bridget. "That flight you missed, I think you caught a better one. One that actually mattered." Bridget's eyes glistened. "I think you're right." That night, Emmanuel and Israel planned their Disney trip. Maps spread out, hotel websites open. "We're really going, Daddy. We're really going. It's going to be the best trip ever." Emmanuel watched his son, healthy and happy and safe. Thought about the woman who missed her flight. Who spent millions to save them. Who proved that sometimes the most expensive thing you can buy is someone else's tomorrow. Yeah, buddy. It's going to be perfect. Thanks you for staying till the end. God bless, and please don't forget to subscribe because more interesting stories are up next.